record. Okay. Hi, everybody. I am really excited to introduce to you Curtis McCracken, who is running for CD3. And I really appreciate, Curtis, you taking time out of your very busy schedule to address the people in CD3 and let them know who you are and what you're about. The floor is yours.
Sure. Well, thank you for doing this. Thank you for having me on. I am Curtis McCracken. I'm running for CD3. I've been in this race since September of 23. I'm sitting in my office right now. I'm a small businessman. Today, I own a real estate brokerage, but I spent most of my adult life building buildings. I was a general contractor and started making a transition into real estate a few years ago. But so that's my background. My wife is also a small business person. She is a retired now physician who ran a practice in Delta, Colorado for 20 years. We've raised two daughters on the Western Slope. One of them is getting ready to start her last year in college. The other one is finished and working in the financial industry in Denver. And so we have deep roots in the Western Slope. We've been here 21 years. We're very active in our church. And so that's kind of our background. Yeah, that's who I am. And I know you sent me a list of questions, and I don't know if you want me to just kind of go through your questions. I'm happy to do that if that's the way you want to go.
You can do whatever you want. Again, those
Okay.
questions are just kind of like a guideline to help
Okay.
if there's, I know that most of those are questions that us everyday citizens have. However, some of them are, not all of them are important to everybody. So you can pick and
Okay.
choose, or you can just do your own platform.
Perfect. Okay. Well, I can tell you that I never address a crowd without telling them that I believe that our Constitution has the power and authority to guide and direct how our country is governed. But I don't think that's what's happening today. It's not happening, especially in the way our money is being spent. And I'll just give you an example. The American Rescue Plan Act that was um, passed in 2021 was the largest spending bill in U.S. history. It was $1.9 trillion, nearly $2 trillion of our money that was printed and borrowed because we didn't actually have that money in the Treasury because we're $35 trillion in debt in this country. And what a lot of people may not understand is that that bill is what handed us the inflation that we're dealing with today. The inflation that is eating into the pockets of the American working class all across the nation, just not CD3, came from that piece of legislation. And if you look at like the experts, there was a former Treasury Secretary with Bill Clinton. His name is Larry Summers. Larry Summers said, it's the least responsible macroeconomic policy in 40 years, and it will cause inflation. That's what they were told when they were signing the bill. And a year later, we were staring at 9% inflation. And so I think it's healthy for Americans to know why we're in the situation we're in. And I think inflation is the number one issue for Americans and for CD3. There are a lot of other issues that we're going to talk about here in a few minutes, but the interest rates that we pay for our houses, the prices that we pay at the pump, the prices that we pay at the grocery store are all a part of the inflation that that we receive from that bill. And the other thing you have to understand about that bill is it didn't pay the debts of this country. It didn't provide for a common defense, and it didn't provide for the general welfare of this nation, which are the reasons Congress have to impose taxes on us, and the reasons that they are given constitutionally to spend the money in the Treasury. And so I believe that what's happening in this country is that we elect people who are supposed to be held accountable to a higher authority. That higher authority is the Constitution. But we're not seeing that happen in the way our money's being spent. We're not seeing it happen in other ways too, but particularly in the way our money's being spent. And so I think what we have got to do is we have got to hire leaders in this country who understand that we have got to balance the budget in this country. We have to learn to live within our means. And I think even the Republicans are not doing this very well. And I'll just give you an example of that. In 2022, the Republicans took back the House of Representatives. And the first thing Kevin McCarthy did when he got the gavel was to take the Republicans in the back room and vote for $10 billion worth of earmarks while staring at a $1.7 trillion deficit for the year 2022. And I just think that speaks to how little our representatives are thinking about how the money in this country is spent. And I think we've got to get a handle on it. I think we, the people, have the privilege, the privilege and the responsibility to hire, fire, and retire our leaders. And I just don't think we're doing a very good job of that. And that's the crux of why I'm running. I'll be honest with you. I think we're in trouble. I think we're broke. I think the government doesn't act like they're broke. I think they think that as long as they have the credit card in their hand, they can run. But the day of reckoning will come. And the deeper in debt you are when the day of reckoning comes, the less options you have. And so I think it's time for us to turn the ship on how our money's being spent. And that's really what I care about most. I'll talk about a couple of other issues. The border and the immigration issue in this country is on the top of everybody's thinking today. And personally, I think what we should do is we should put the military on the border, because the people who are working the border are tired. Millions and millions of people are trying to cross our border a year. And if we're going to have an immigration policy, which I don't think we have today, that's working, then we have to be able to control our own border. I think that's the first thing we have to do. And I'm not the first one to say that. I'm not recreating the wheel here. And so I think we have got to take control of our border. I think building the wall, I think, is a horrible thing to have to do, but I think it is a good idea for America. I think if we don't control our border, we can't have an immigration policy. Now let's talk about the immigration policy. For decades, I'm 62 years old, and for decades, I've watched our Congress kick the can down the road on what we're going to do with immigration. It's time to stop kicking the can down the road and sit people down and talk about it. But we've got a Congress that they can't talk to each other. The Republicans and the Democrats can't talk to each other because they've just thrown so many insults at one another. They can't seem to get together on a policy. And I think this is not I think that what we're seeing is a reaction from the White House, but I think the action should be taken from the legislature. And I think the legislature's got to sit down and decide what to do. And then they've got to hold the White House's feet to the fire and say, these are the laws. We're going to follow them, because the rule of law is not being followed on our border. And so I'm going to charge the legislators with sitting down and getting that work done. And I think it's long overdue, and I think we have to do that. I think the same thing about Social Security and Medicare. We've got a president who stood up during his campaign in 2020 and said that he wasn't going to talk about it. And I think we've got two programs that are headed for insolvency, and we're not even able to sit down in the same room and discuss them. And we've got to do that. And so we've got to send some leaders to Congress who are secure enough in themselves to respect others enough that we can at least get in the same room and talk about these things that have got to be hashed out. And they're big problems, and they're not easy to solve. And so that's what I think has to happen in this country. I don't know what else you want me to speak to, but I'm happy to. I want to make sure that what's on the hearts of the people you're representing in the San Luis Valley, I speak to. So if you could help me out.
Okay. Let me go through my list. Let's see. You've already answered several of them. What is your stance on Israel?
Well, I think that we have got to make the commitment to combat evil in the world. That doesn't mean that we have to get involved in every conflict, but Israel is an ally, and Israel is asking for help. Israel is a wealthy nation who will be able to pay back what we loan to them, whether it's militarily or monetarily. And so there's no reason in my mind why we should not be backing Israel. Um, and I think that we're doing a pretty good job of that. I think our current administration is making it difficult on Israel. I think that's wrong. I think we're going to call them an ally. Let's be an ally, and let's get them what they need and within reason. And just in the news today is a report of the IDF rescuing 4 of the hostages. Who would have thought that would have happened? Praise God. Um, those 4 individuals have suffered for months. And so I'm hopeful and prayerful that more of that will happen.
Thank you. That's also my stance.
Wonderful.
Israel is on October 7th. I don't know how anybody can think that that wasn't evil being
Yes.
done
Yes.
on innocence, and how it possibly Israel could be at fault. So thank you. The other question that I know a lot of people have had is, how do you feel about the election processes, the 2020 election, and basically election integrity? Where are you in the scheme of things on that?
I think by and large, I trust our election system. That doesn't mean it's perfect. In Colorado, we have mail-in ballots. I think if you're going to do a mail-in ballot, uh, you have got to have a plan for cleaning up your voter rolls. Because I think the mail-in ballot makes it easy for someone to say, vote for their cast a vote for their dead relative, or somebody who maybe has a ballot but isn't going to fill it out. And so I think it should be one vote for one voice. And so I think the voter rolls are very important to make sure that we keep them cleaned up. I think the election judges and the signature verification that we do is healthy. I think that it gives me great well, I think that it helps make sure that when I cast a ballot, it's counted and it's looked at. And it's not only looked at from the standpoint of, okay, that's my signature, and I sign a lot of documents like my voter registration card, my hunting license, my driver's license. And so the state of Colorado has a lot of my signature. And so what signature verification does is they take a look at those signatures that I've made over the years, and they look at them against my ballot. And so I think that's healthy. I think the election judges are Republicans and Democrats in the room, making sure that the ballots are counted correctly. I think that's healthy. I think we have a tremendous amount of people who give their time and effort to polling places, and I think that we have an honest election system. I also believe that there are people out there who are trying to interfere with our elections. And so I think we have to be very, very careful. And when there are things that we believe are creating an interference in our election process, I think we have to look into that very carefully. The other thing that we unfortunately are forced to deal with is the interference of PACs and dark money in our elections. Personally, I don't think we should allow any PAC money in a primary. If you think about a primary really is, let's just look at our primary. In Colorado's 3rd congressional district, we have 6 candidates. What we need to do is we need to get the people of CD3 to decide who they want to represent them in the general election. And I think big money, PAC money, Washington money should stay out of that. I understand using PAC money when it comes to a general election, because in a general election, those are the parties wrestling for control of the district, trying to get the Republican or the Democrat or the Libertarian or whoever it is into play. And I think that's a place where the PAC money is useful. I think there's no place for dark money. I think that has to be taken out of our society. And I don't know if you guys know how that works, but basically people give to nonprofits. Nonprofits don't have to disclose who their donors are, and those nonprofits then give to large super PACs, and they use their weight to influence an election. I personally think there's more election interference in that than there is in how my ballot is controlled.
Wonderful. Okay. You pretty much answered most of my questions that I kind of had. Um, if you'll do me a favor, kind of just do a closing statement to everybody, and then
Okay.
we'll conclude it.
Okay. Well, I think one of the things that we have to think through in this moment is how are we going to defeat a Democrat with millions and millions of dollars? And I say this a lot on the campaign trail. You know, what we have got to do is we have got to make sure that um, that Adam Frisch, that we attach all of these hypocrisies of the Democratic leadership to Adam Frisch. This inflation, people need to know where this inflation came from and who is responsible for it. The Democratic Party voted 100% for this American Rescue Plan Act. Not one Republican voted for it. And so, if you're going to represent the Democratic Party, you need to take ownership of that, because that is destroying the pocketbooks and the household budgets of Americans all across this country, not just CD3. And so I think we have got to make Adam Frisch take ownership of that. I think the lawlessness at the border, the lawlessness in our sanctuary cities, I think all of that has to be given. We have got to lay the blame where the blame lays. And I'm not saying we need to blame everybody, but there is a place for that to rest. And it's in their camp and it's on his shoulders. And I think the people of this district have to understand, if that's who you're going to vote for, that's what you're going to get. And I think we have to be different. As Republicans, we have got to stop fighting amongst ourselves. I think Republicans have to decide, are we truly going to be the party of conservatism? And if we are, let's act like it. Let's say it. Let's say this is who we are. Now let's go act like it. And I think that's what we have to do. And I think if people will give me the opportunity, I'll go to Congress. I'll be honest. I'll work hard. I'll work in your best interest. I don't need a job. I'm 62 years old, and I don't. It's not. I'm not. I'm not looking for some place to go for the next 20 years. And so my heart really is in, let's make this country a better place. And I think the things that we've talked about today are what can make that happen.
Awesome. Okay, I did forget one question. If you are not fortunate enough to be the one that becomes the candidate for CD3, will you support whoever it is?
Yeah, I think I have to. And here's why. I was asked that question in a candidate forum the other day, and I think Ron Hanks was the only one that said he wouldn't. And so if I'm going to ask the Republicans in CD3 and the Republican Party to support me, I have to be willing to support the one they choose. Now, if I wasn't a candidate, I would say I'm free to choose whoever I want to choose. But as a candidate, I've put myself in a different position. I've taken money from constituents. I have said I'm going to support the Republican Party, and I'm going to do that. And even if my in my mind I think, well, that guy may not do a very good job. Look, I've made an effort to ask the party to support me, and that's what I'm going to do.
Awesome. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. All right,
All
terrific. Well,
right,
again, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. And I
you're
know
welcome.
you are. You're traveling the miles. I-
Yeah,
you guys have got to be totally exhausted. So thank you for
yeah,
taking the time. And I will be getting the recording out, and I'll send you this link especially so that way if you want to share it with anybody, you'll have it. All right.
wonderful, Cheryl. Well, thank you
Okay.
for your time.
You're welcome.
All
Have
right,
a great day. Safe
you do the
travels.
same.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.